So what really happened on that fateful night before the October 7th attack? Conflicting reports and opposite storylines between the political leadership, the military and the intelligence services regarding early signs that Hamas was getting ready to act dominated Israel's news cycles this week. And before we go any further, I'd like to introduce our panel of experts for this evening. Former commander of the A200 unit, intelligence unit, General Hanan Gefen, here with me in the studio, and Sima Shine, former Mossad officer and deputy head of strategic affairs in Israel's National Security Council. Thank you both for being with us this evening. So, Hanan Gefen, we've heard yesterday that there were early signs that Israel misunderstood them in real time. What can we learn out of it?
Well, in intelligence life, as an intelligence, and I've lived in this kind of circumstances for 30 years, you often come to a situation where you have mixed signals and a decision to make. Here, there was really mixed signals. Weak signals. I don't want to get into it because there are more than I assume that there are more than was published, and the decisions that were taken were based on past experience during the last 10, 15 years of recurrent cases where nothing happened. As one example, or that happened in a minor case, never in such a case. Now, there is certainly, it's a failure, a major failure, and it has to be checked. One of the problems, I would say, is that in the previous years, the leaders, military and political, were used to intelligence, fluent intelligence, very clear intelligence. The decisions were taken during operation were based on this kind of intelligence, and this time it lacked. And that's a decision that were taken. I would say one, and we are in Rashomon effect, and we'll see during the investigation that will follow after the war, whenever it starts, we'll see the Rashomon effect. One of the problems is that the decision makers at this point, as we understand, were the top leaders. We don't see all the levels, the experts below them. Usually, the knowledge, the deep knowledge, the senses lies in the lower echelons, and whatever we have read. It was a discussion between the top leaders, the very top leaders, lacking on all this in the military and the operational parts, lacking the lower levels.
Sima Shine, you've been serving in the intelligence parts of Israel for quite a few years. Can you understand or try to explain what happened and how come it happened to a state which failed dramatically in 1973, apparently learned all the lessons, was based heavily on intelligence in the past decades, and failed again 5 months ago?
Yeah. If you wouldn't remind us the October 73, I would do it. It is very similar to what happened at that time. It's different. It's a different scenario. It's a different event. But the intelligence problem is very similar. I would say two levels of problems. One is I'm trying to put it in a very mild way. One is what we call the conception, which I'm not against having conceptions, because you cannot evaluate developments without having conceptions. But if you are stick to the conception, you will always fail in seeing when the conception is ruined or is changed. So this is one thing. For years, there was an understanding that was shared by the political as well as by the security establishment that Hamas wants to rule Gaza. And once it became the rulers of Gaza, they want to have money to feed their people, for education, for health. They want people to go to work in Israel. This was the conception of both the political as well as the security establishment. So this is one part of the problem. The other part of the problem is that whenever you have many signs, first of all, if you are in the conception, you can always give explain what does this mean within the system. It is a training exercise. It is something we saw a year ago. It's not for the first time. All these things that we know and we can explain once we are within the conception that they are not going to start such an event or such an attack. The second one is that always the signs are separated from each other, and not always all people that are talking. And it was mentioned by Hanan before that only very high-ranking officers were involved in the consultations during the night, and not working levels. So it happens a lot of time that not all of them, all the information and all the signs that were accumulated during the last weeks or months are known to the high-ranking people. And this is a huge problem that probably was in this case also. And the combination of the two actually, was a tragic
a tragic result, yeah. But Sima, we heard it yesterday and the day before about the signs that were received at the night itself. 2, 3, 4, 5 a.m. and apparently was either that weren't treated rightly. One of them was the use of SIM cards by Palestinian terrorists, Israeli ones, in order to enable them to operate within Israel. A few dozens of such SIM cards, and we've heard the response from high-ranked officers saying that such thing was done over and over again by Hamas during trainings. So this time as well, Israel thought it's another training, which means Hamas played cry wolf quite successfully with us.
Yeah. I think I'm not sure that they did it in order, to make us believe that it is again a training. I think they trained themselves to see how they operate once they are starting such an attack, how they operate, how they open the phones and everything. But no question, all the explanations will be, I'm sure we'll hear more explanations, but no explanation will be sufficient to tell us why those people that were consulting among themselves didn't say to themselves, and that is one of the lessons of 73 was, if you have you don't have only to count on the intention of the other side. You have to count first and foremost on the capabilities. And once you know that the other side has the capabilities, once you know that they are training such an attack, and you know that they are using SIMs and other things, in this case, you don't have to count on the intention, because on the intention, usually we will fail, because sometimes they will change the intention. And therefore, I think in this specific event, in the consultation that they had in midnight, they had to take the worst case scenario, not in a dramatic way, but within some levels of awareness to the people, the soldiers on the border, as well as to a little bit more tanks and other soldiers coming. This is something that we have been teaching in all the courses in the intelligence for years after 73. Don't count on intentions, count on capabilities.
Yes, Sima, stay with us. Hanan Gefen, you agree with that? I mean, the high-ranked officer in the army, in the intelligence, in the secret service should have treated it more severely, given what they thought in real time, not now. Now, obviously, we know the result.
They treated it seriously, and some of them just left their homes and ran to their headquarters. Some of them were religious people that didn't hesitate for a moment. The questions are more than that, and that's for the investigation. You have that much doubt, as Sima said. Do something. Do at least tell your people to be on alert, or anything. And it seems, as far as we know right now, it might be changed if investigation will discover it. But they didn't do anything to support this kind of activity. Yoav, I would like to add one thing that just mentioned today by some of the reporters, that the decision not to do anything was due to the sensitivity of the information. And this was mentioned by one reporter. And this is a very...
They want to, as you say, burn sources.
That's what compromise sources. And it's, it's a good example because sources were compromised during the last 15 years during operation. We have several operations, and probably sources were compromised. Now, Israel has to be very alert to it because we have this stubborn enemy. So this was a reasoning, one of the reasoning, to say contain the information, not to let it out, not to take any operational measure that would alert the other side that he was compromised. So this is a very complicated, very heavy decision to make. And if the signals are not strong enough, this will be a major factor not to do anything.
What should be learned out of it? I mean, looking to the future, because obviously Israel would like to prevent another 7th of October.
I'll tell you one thing, as a veteran, during the last 10 or 15 years, the part of the technical cyber influence information was so overwhelming that it was more a kind of a technical act, the intelligence work, and the part of the knowledge, the part of people who feel the enemy, who understand the language, who understand the nuance, who understand what the day-to-day life on the other side was in the shadow of the cyber and the cyber expert and the overwhelming dominance of cyber in the Israeli intelligence community. On all sides, not only the military intelligence, but other intelligence as well. And I believe one of the lessons that we learned
to be less addicted.
Yes, you have to have two arms, two pillars. One is the intelligence experts, and the other side is the cyber expert. They have to live together, and it's difficult because cyber is more promising. It's more worldwide. Intelligence. People will leave the intelligence, go do other things, not looking to be promoted. So the ranks will be, lesser and lesser expert.
Sima, you agree with that? We should be more balanced in our intelligence system.
I think this is no question that this is one of the lessons. I think there should be other two because you cannot count only on intelligence. And this is a mistake that is done again and again. The army has to decide what is the minimum forces and what kind of forces they need on the border. They cannot compromise on that. And what we understand now, what was on this border, is really nothing. Not to talk about the fact that the groups that have to save, the kibbutzim. They didn't have enough arms. They were not trained enough. That's unbelievable, everything that we have heard since the 7th of October. So this is one thing that I think should be detected from intelligence. You have to decide what is the minimum you need. So that's one thing. The other one, I think we should also say that people should be, especially if they are getting to the higher echelons, should be much more modest and less hubris with thinking that we know everything, that Hamas is Hamas was perceived to be the least strengthening force in the chain that we have around us. Hezbollah is much more, the Iranians are much more. Hezbollah was perceived to be the weak one. And therefore, the whole attitude vis-a-vis Hamas was much more, how should I say, less less giving them the credit that they might do something in such an attack in such a big numbers of people. People were thinking,
Yes.
even those who talked to this through the night were thinking about a small penetration through the border, something that is not connected in any way to. And this is part of the thinking of Hamas, that they will not be able to do such a thing.
Yes, Sima Shine, I want to thank you so much for being with us tonight, Hanan Gefen. Thank you for getting to our studio.